101 Awakening. This is birth certificate rights. How to withdraw your trust fund from your government. This is now part 3. The school trades, another industry that you own inside the Corporation of Canada. You can find my account in YouTube under the Chosen Ones _101. There are 2 playlists. One is the birth certificate rights. Watch it from the bottom to the top. The second one is the service industries of fear. You can watch that one randomly, as it will just help you how to deal with the service industries of fear. The birth certificate rights will walk you through from 0 to 18. The new videos I'm creating, I will call them How You Can Withdraw Your Trust Fund. The new videos I'm creating is as if you are now 19, what do you do with that trust fund? And how do you see the overall workings of your corporation? This will give you an understanding how you want to take back your rights or to continue giving the corporation the invisible consent on your life. So now let's add another main industry, the School of Trades. The School of Trades will create different laws for each of the different main industries to follow. So let's say, for example purposes, the president of the food industries must take courses in the manufacturing industries, courses on banking, entertainment, medical industries, pharmaceutical industries, labor industries, demolition industries, travel industries, or airline industries. For the president to master all these areas of different industries will allow him to better serve the company that he's working for, the main industry of food chains. Therefore, his own personal value also increases because he is most likely sellable. If you are sellable, you can command your own price to negotiate to hire you because the corporation will now mandate him how to grow the economy. So now you're 19, you're now thinking what you just heard. Now when you get your money, the trust fund from your trustor, you can now decide whether you want to be a president of the main industries that you own. Now you're thinking, wait a minute. Didn't I just said if I get rid of management, the vice presidents, the CEOs of every corporations that I own, and I just educate all my worker bees and educate myself, we can now run all these businesses together as a whole, and therefore saving us a lot of wasted money on all these people. Perhaps we can re-educate these people and work for us as accountants and workers just like us. So since the president of the food chain industry met all the School of Trade standards, he will now have a diploma degree to hang on his wall. The diploma will have some digit of numbers. In other words, you are now a member or the shareholder for the School of Trades of Industries because you followed the rules. The rules to the companies that you will manage, or as the administrator of that industry of trade. So now you're asking yourself, how can you differentiate the main industry that he's managing versus the sub-industries versus the sub-subs of industries? So let me show you how it works so you can tell it for yourself. In Canada, we'll do two of the major food industry grocery stores. Just look around you when you go shopping next time in a big plaza. So if the Loblaw store is on a stand-alone building area, then he's one of the main stores that is privately owned. If Loveless is linked beside to another store, then they are the sub-industry of the main store. But if you go into the mall and you see Loblaws inside the mall, then he's a sub of the sub-industries. So I could be the main owner or the president of the store, and now I will rent another store in a different space type to create my other stores. And I keep growing and growing the more I become rich. And every owner running these spaces took some kind of a course at the School of Trades in order for them to receive their diploma. The registered diploma for each store will now be displayed upon entry. So each person that now have diplomas are now the shareholder of the School of Trades. In order to remain as a shareholder, you must pay a fee to keep your diploma in effect. Your diploma is only as good if you pay the service industry of School of Trades. Now you're thinking, wait a minute. Since all the worker bees are the subs of the industries of trade, and I educated myself and I educated my workers, and if you think about it, the shared knowledge will be greater than what they learned in the School of Trades. So why is the School of Trades forcing all my workers to further educate themselves or pay more dollars into them if they're not doing anything for my workers? I can now educate the School of Trades what I just found out, because as far as I can see, there's a lot of redundancy in this section of my trade, the School of Trades. Now you're wondering, who created the laws for the School of Trades? So now you want to have a meeting with the president or vice president of the law industries of trades. So now you summoned all the different presidents that sits in the law of industries, the judges, the police, the lawyers, and you sat all across from them and said, who created the laws for all these industries to follow? And one smartass said, gleefully and happily, we did. We made the laws, sir. Remember, you're 19, but you're not stupid. So now you're going to ask this smartass president, how did you all come up with a decided law? Well, we all discussed it and voted on each law. So now you're asking, in other words, you made bullshit laws. So now you're scratching your head. What's good for me is good for others. Only if it's a true story. But since they all made up the laws, that makes the law a fake story of laws. So now you're thinking and scratching your head. Well, if they're fake laws, why do I need judges and lawyers and police officers? All they're doing to my people of different industries are creating stupid laws for them to think about. Because remember, when you are educating all these people to work for you, you told them to be good to people at all times. You respect your customers. You and the parents and the people outside of you are all customers, the 42 million people of Canada. So if you know you will respect each other, because if a tyrant walk into any of your store, you will accustom or kick that person out of your store. Because you know they are doing natural harm to your people and to your other customers coming into your store. And if you respect each other and you respect yourself, then for sure you will not do no harm to any other people or living creatures of your space, your planet Earth. So now you're thinking and scratching your head. So why are the policemen giving you speeding tickets? If you are people or the worker bees are obeying the laws, how could the police officer say that you're speeding if you're driving an entity vehicle? In other words, it has no life. Because in order for the policeman to say you are speeding as a person, he must see you traveling at that speed of light, whatever he's trying to charge you. So if you're driving, he said, he caught you going 54 on a 40, he must see you moving your body. You must have a motion in order for the policeman to trap you. They cannot trap an entity because it has no life. It doesn't move. Because you are the owner of this corporation and you own the law industries of trades, therefore the policemen and judges actually work for you. So if the policeman stops you and asks you for an ID, you can refuse it if you choose to, because you own the corporation. You don't want him to know that you are actually his boss, because you want to report that policeman. And perhaps he can be dealt with and be told of the truth of who you are, a rich person in the house of glass. But what if the judge summoned you to his own courthouse? Then you tell that judge, why did he summon you? Now you have to make an appearance for his disturbances on you. Now he will address you under your birth certificate name in capital letters, the entity card that has no life, because that's all he can see on the documents that he is being forced to address. Because the law of the land states that every judge must review every document that lands on his stage. So you will now correct this judge and say, no, you know what? I actually go by the name of John Doe and not the name that you're seeing on that document, because the one on your document is an entity card. And now introducing myself to you as John Doe. That's the preferred name I want to be addressed going forward and here on under. So now that you overruled him and told the judge how to address you, he has no choice but to address you based on your given name. The given name you gave to him as John Doe. If he doesn't address you with that name that you ask him to do, then you have the right to fire that judge, because that judge works for you. He doesn't work for the corporation. He works for you. The corporation works for you and all the 42 million people of Canada that are registered inside the corporation. The corporation that earns money on all these businesses that belongs to all the worker bees of each corporation that they work for. Are you getting all this now, everyone? So now I decided to fire all the judges that sits in the chambers, because really they're just wasting my time and the time of people that appears in his chambers. The chamber of law of fake laws. So now you're wondering, how did these laws came about? Because obviously somebody from higher ups created the fake laws for people to use. So now the head of the law industries just revealed something to you that you don't want to hear. It's a secret that can cost his life. So he asked for you to swear under oath. It's just between the two of you. But you just turned 19. Your 19th birthday doesn't really take effect till after the 24 hours of your birthday. So really, when you shook his hand to make that promissory note to him, you were still under the age of 18. In other words, you can break that bond with him because the bond doesn't exist, and you cannot make a contract until you are the age of 19. So now, before you shook his hand, you're now thinking about the contract law of industries. So now you're wondering, if the laws are bullshit laws, therefore the contract laws are also bullshit contracts. Because every time you entered into a contract with any of these industries, you are using a dead entity name. You're not really the person on the card they're dealing with each time you enter into a contract. Remember the birth certificate card that went inside the glass of house? That contains your true identity inside? Until such time you do not write your trustor a letter advising him that you are now taking over the trusted funds that you ask him to manage for you, you will not receive your true identity. That's what your parents had been doing all along. They had forgotten to take out the registered original birth certificate form for themselves. That's why you've been poor for so long. But now that you know the process, that you are not the strawman or the dummy person that your house of glass treated you all these years and all to other 42 millions of people in the home state of Canada. At 19, you are now asking the house of glass, who came up with all these laws? Because now you want to speak directly to the Prime Minister of Canada, because the main industry person in the law firm told you a secret that you only know between the two of you. So now you're going to surprise the Prime Minister of the knowledge you now know of how to operate all your industries. An industry of fear, an industries of control to your own people. And you, and you, and you, and everyone outside of you. So now the Prime Minister is now saying that he sold your company to a secret owner, the Crown Corporation. Your corporation is going broke because he's got too many processes in place, too many redundant processes that you can now, as a 19-year-old person, can see. Because he's overspent, he traded your company in the market, and the highest bidder is the Crown Corporation. The Crown Corporation created all the laws for them to follow, including your corporation, under the ruling of the Crown. The governor is the running, current, sitting crown on the state, King Charles. Since the House of Glass is a private corporation, because you are a private person, your parent is a private person, all your people here, the worker bees, are all private persons, the Prime Minister can only sell your corporation to private individuals that belongs on the land that he manages, the town of Canada. Therefore, since the Prime Minister is also operating under his entity name, and we determined that the judges, the laws are all fake, the contract that he signed with the Crown makes it invalid because the contract doesn't exist under the law of fake lands. The proof of concept is if you can see the live birth of your stock, then that makes that stock a legal immigrant of the land. Therefore, I must produce the livestock birth certificate in order for you to tag that cow's baby as your own possession of livestock to care for. If you cannot produce the baby's cow's identification, then that cow's baby is an illegal immigrant on your land. You must sell it immediately. So now let's apply that to people. The crown, the king's land. The king and the Crown Corporation is an illegal immigrant to Canada. If the Crown is an illegal immigrant, why are we paying taxes to the corporation? Why are we paying illegal immigrants from all the different industries? Which brings me to illegal immigrants of our country, of Canada. Why are we paying illegal immigrants from all the industries I owned, or that the 42 million people that are registered to the corporation that we owned, that we collectively own, all the stores and subsidiaries? Why am I giving away all the money to other countries when I can enrich, educate, and share the wealth amongst the commonwealth, the common interests of people, the shared interests of living the good life? Because so far, without going through the entire process of killing industries, is tremendously killing my profit share of my corporation, the profit share of the commonwealth of people. So now you're saying to yourself, how do we get rid of the crown? Easily, you destroyed the constitutional rights that they written for you, because that contract is now null and void, because the law of our land are all fake laws. We haven't created our own natural laws yet. The natural law of God, the 10 Commandments. The crown created her own judge and jury, her own selections. We as people do not abide by the crown's rule. We will have to create our own rules for the crown to use. Because after all, the crown is an illegal immigrant to all the country of Canada as a whole. An illegal immigrant to all my industries of trade. I will now be cleaning every one of these industries to figure out who has been stealing, conniving, exploring the health of my people based on the chemicals of these industries are using today. So you better be prepared when I ask you questions on how you each contributed knowingly to the demise of my industries of trades, because that's what everybody is doing from what I'm assessing here. They're all contributing to the death of me, to the death of me, to the death of my parents, and anyone else outside of me. Because after hearing all the talks from each of these presidents that I've spoken to on how the trades work, it makes me sick. It makes me sick to my stomach. And that's not how I want to operate. I want to operate in peace and love and unity for the common health of our society. Now, I want to hear what it takes to run a food industry based on natural products. I want to see how I can eliminate all these movements of processes to every one of these industries of trades that are currently processing involuntarily payment processing systems. Now let's see who else I can fire. The FDAs, the press, the president, the vice president, the management, the construction company who puts this all together. Oh, another construction company. Yeah, I'm going to be firing them too. Obviously, they created too many redundancy of buildings around this planet, colluding, thinking that they're doing the right thing when they're really destructing my house, my glass of house. So now let's look at the produce section of the food industry and how we can upgrade or delete all these processes based on time. So now let's discuss the process for produce and how does it get to all the different services of industries of trade. And do we need to supply the redundant service of industries if they cannot consume the produce aisles?